అణు అణువున నాదం నా పంచ ప్రాణాల నాట్య వినోదం నాలో రేగే నిన్నో హంసానదే రాగా.
Namaste and welcome to Indica Academy, Sistla Garu, and congratulations on your film Sivaagnya winning a very important award at Indica Pictures Short Film Festival, commemorating the legacy of K. Viswanath Garu. Let us start at the very beginning. You share with him your roots in the same village. So can you tell us something about this village and how do you think, a person from a place like this deep in Andhra, how he rose to become such a great figure in Indian cinema?
So I came to know about Viswanath Garu is from Repalla from my father. My father is a veteran art director in Telugu film industry. And so one day I was watching one of K. Viswanath Garu's film. I didn't even know the title and I was hooked up with the film. And over time when I started inquiring about Viswanath Garu, then my father explained everything about his legacy and I got interested in Viswanath Garu's storytelling. I was much more inspired to make my film Sivaagnya after reading a novel called Kaidam Puli by M. Nagabhusan Garu. So that inspired me. And of course, it was deeply rooted with Viswanath Garu's ideology. So, yeah, that's how it began. In short, if I have to close it down.
Oh, wonderful. See, when we talk about studying cinema, and actually, how Vishwanath Garu came up was I think he had a BSc degree and then he went on to be an apprentice with a audiographer. So there was no formal training in terms of sitting in a classroom and learning. But you're a professor and you've also been trained formally. How does, and you study history, film history, you have academic credits. How is that different from the way Vishwanath Garu came into the profession?
So it matters with practice, ma'am. In simple words, we being formally educated, what happens is we gain a little, say an industry practitioner gains X amount of experience by making films that we gain a little earlier. That's the only difference. But Vishwanath Garu, I think in that generation there were more of values which I think the family values and etc. were embedded by default in Viswanath Garu. Yeah, when it comes to nuclear families, over time, I live in a nuclear family. I don't know the values. when I compare myself with the legend, yeah. So I think it was important for me to understand those values, and Viswanath Garu practiced a lot. It's not just entering the film industry and making a film. It's not easy, first of all. And he practiced as an audiographer, later turned slowly into a director, later actor. Yeah, so many accolades to the legend.
So
Practice matters.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think he was a perfectionist.
Correct.
And the discipline that he had up to the stage of actually going, getting into the actor stage, the amount of effort he put seems to have made it easier for the cast.
Correct.
Like when you hear them, Manjuna or somebody speaking as a child actor, he says all I had to do was to trust in Vishwanath Garu's direction.
Yeah.
So clearly all the work was done by him as a director, and his thought processes were so clear, like you mentioned, value systems.
Yeah.
So unless it's so ingrained in us, it's very difficult to depict it without it looking false.
Correct.
So in terms of cinematography, since you are trained in it, and also clearly you have a very high level of skill for you to have one award among so many films, what in your view, and in which films do you see in Vishwanath Garu's films, do you see very high emphasis on production, location, the color, lighting? Which film attracted you the most in terms of the technical perfection?
Simple, Swati Mutyam. Swati Mutyam was my first film that I watched, and the cinematographer is Mr. M.V. Raghu, who happens to be my half guru, a very good friend of my father. Again, I interacted with him a lot, and the title itself speaks for everything. First of all, and in terms of technical mastery, I think there are a lot of other technical stuff which we if we start speaking that it goes on forever. As a cinematographer, I can talk forever about
Please,
Swati.
please do talk at least for a few minutes so that our audience knows what to look out. You know, it's taken, you know, it's so beautifully brought together that we don't notice it separate. Like today we have awards for, you know, Western, we have award for lighting, production, you know, very minute technical things have awards.
Yeah,
Whereas, you know, there was no such taking out of a film and, you know, looking at it differently in those days.
yeah. There's nobody to break it down,
Yes.
basically. Yeah, but there's nobody to break it down, and there's so many films to talk about. So Swati Mutyam remains a little in the bottom of the line, if I may say. So, in terms of Swati Mutyam, what I feel is that it's the storytelling through the camera. It may be generic in my words, but it is storytelling through camera. If I have, say, uh, if I have a track and trolley, for example,
Mm.
I might use the track and trolley just because I have track and trolley. No, that's not the case. If the story will demand everything.
Yeah.
So if it's a gimbal shot, the story should demand a gimbal shot. If it's a crane shot, the story should demand a crane shot. So in that aspect, I think in from cinematography aspect, it is important for a cinematographer to convey a story through his camera, through his lensing, through his lighting, or what his or her lensing, lighting, whatever it takes, and tell a story instead of just pressing the record button, and that's not cinematography in my case. In Swati Mutyam, for instance, there's a shot where there's a scene where the grandma dies.
Mhm.
That hooked me. That scene is very much close to my heart, basically. The grandma dies, and Kamal sir walks to Radhika ma'am, and there's a child with Radhika ma'am, and the camera starts with the Talibottu, the Mangalsutram, and camera slowly tilts down to the boy on one side and Kamal sir on the other side. That shot itself speaks for the scene. You don't have to tell anything. There's no verbal stuff that the scene requires. The camera is telling a story there. So they could have cut in more angles, and with the kind of privilege Viswanath Garu and Raghu Garu had, they could have easily cut the scene to, have more shots, and maybe in editing they could have done the magic. But it's just one single shot which conveys that the kid and Kamal sir are equal now. She's supposed to take care of both. Now that the grandma passed away, now it becomes Radhika Garu's responsibility to take care of both children. That's how it is. Every shot, it's not just recording, it's not just pressing the recording button. It conveys something, it keeps conveying something, and I think they achieved, Viswanath achieved it and mastered it over time, I believe.
Absolutely. Even in your film, it starts with a very broad and grand beginning, you know, with the train and the setting of the forest. How did you also give credit to your students and your college? So what did it entail to get those first shots? And to give that, you know, sense of, oh, it's such 3.5 hours is a lot, and you know, to convey that distance. So how did you manage, you know, in a was, you know, given these short films usually run on very tight budgets, but
Yeah.
yours clearly is far bigger, in scope than the other films. So how did you manage
It is maturity, madam.
that?
It's been 15 years I'm into this industry, and most of them commented the same. I received the same comments. It's not like a short film. The way you opened is so huge with drone shots and all that incorporated into it. I think being a cinematographer helped me to achieve that kind of look. I please don't think I'm going into a lecturer mode.
No, no, please go. It's fine because see, we're trying to get as panoramic opinion as possible. You
Right.
have this special, expertise,
Yeah.
which we would like to know about.
Thank you, thank you. So I named it tonal montage. Basically, if you go back to history, it is called tonal montage. And again, drawing back to the roots that M. Nagabhushan Sharma garu established in Kaidam Puli. If you read the first paragraph of Kaidam Puli, he sets the tone of the village first.
Right.
So instead of jumping into the scene directly, first I'll talk about this village called Dharmapuri, and I'll show all the greenery of the Dharmapuri, and there's a voiceover of my own voiceover basically.
Wonderful.
Yeah, so I'll establish that first, set the tone, and then go into the story is what was my plan basically. And to add to that, I have a set of at least 1,500 to 1,700 students who were a call away and help me achieve that kind of visual. Yeah, so that's how it is. The grandeur of the scene is.
It must have been a wonderful experience for them to actually work live on a film like this. So
Yeah,
is
that's
it
the
something that
achievement.
students do often?
Yeah, it is. It is on and off. It is on and off. And we, faculty of Annapurna College of Film and Media, are very much encouraged by Amala garu, who's our director of the college. She asks us to make films every time. If we sit idle for some time, she comes behind us and say, "What are you doing here without making a film? Go shoot something." So keeps going on, and I think her encouragement made me, make Sivaagnya. Sometime in April last year, she sent me on a WhatsApp about K. Viswanath short film contest, and that's how the journey began. So she is the catalyst for everything behind Sivaagnya.
Okay. This theme of caste and access to society because of who you are and what caste you belong is something that was of concern to him also.
Yeah.
So is that in a short film are we able to look because the politician is cast in a very extremely villainous mold.
Yeah.
He's somebody we cannot like at all.
Yeah.
So, in a short film, every character has to be that extreme, I think, because we have to cover a lot of ground in a short time. So,
Yeah.
how do we do research? Like you talk about the snake poison, and are these adapted from the book, did you create those incidents yourself?
It is created, madam. All these details are not there in the book. From the book, what I adapted is a village and the setup of the village. I like those characters, the conflicts between them, and I adapted those from Kaidam Puli novel. The poison and stuff, I'm a huge Shiva Bhakt basically. So I like personally, I don't know how to express my love towards Shiva, but yeah, so it is written by my own. There are no references as such, and my wife is a screenwriter, so she was the one to doctor the script.
Wonderful.
So I have written, although she is a non-Telugu screenwriter, I had to guide her in some ways, but we doctored it together, and I've done it. And going to the nitty-gritties of the script, villain, yeah, villain should be stronger, is what we felt, so that the hero should win. And it is Shiva who's running the show. Although we don't see the original Shiva, the godly Shiva in the scene, we see in the form of a snake. That's all. So our belief system, me and my wife together, our belief system is that there's no physical form for Shiva. It is humans, human, or some other physical thing will come and help the hero is what how we designed the script, and it is Vasuki in this case.
Because I also read, or I saw a video where Shankara Abharanam, has been, the word has been split and said, the Abharanam of Shankara. So the
Correct.
snake is the, Abharana of Shiva, and you have actually, picturized it as that. So while it is both fearsome, but when we see it with, association with Shiva, then it becomes a kind of protector also.
Correct.
We worship. So it can
Correct.
be, both deadly as well as, devotional. So bhakti too was a very key element of Vishwanath Garu's films. Either bhakti through music, or bhakti through dance, or bhakti through, worship of our devas and devtas.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, would such a theme resonate today? We have a lot of conflict in terms of, these issues. So yours is a very clear cut, Shiva Bhakti film. Would it still resonate with other audiences, do you think, who may not, relate to your Bhakti?
May or may not, and it is either way. So there were two things in my mind when I was making. One is to make a film for Shiva Bhakt people, and one is to make a story. These were two minds which I had. So it predominantly the story should speak for itself. So it is a story in which Lord Shiva plays a role. So that's how I took it. And caste, the word caste has been a mysterious thing for me from my childhood. Although they say they categorically say Brahmins are superior, next comes this, next comes this, next comes this. It has been a mystery, and nobody was helping me to solve that mystery. And I thought over time, gaining maturity, I thought caste system is nothing in day-to-day lives. So it has to be avoided, and it has to come from a supreme entity like Lord Shiva. And Lord Shiva should help somebody who's in a lower caste. Was my idea basically. If you see the character Sivudu in my film, he's got the name also, and Vasuki helps him, achieve his daughter's goal to
Yeah.
join.
And his daughter is also Saraswati. So I think,
Saraswati, yeah.
right. So it's beautifully brought out.
Yeah.
So, in terms of lighting, I mean, you have half the film in daytime and a major part of it at night in forest, in a forest scenario.
Yeah.
So this contrast also brings about this difference between good and evil, darkness and light. So how did you shoot the night scenes, and was it intentional to create this kind of, day and night kind of division?
Yeah, again,
Especially on Shivaratri, considering that, on Shivaratri, we stay awake even though it's night.
yeah. So it was an intentional thing, Andy, because in screenwriting, I believe all the bad things happen at night. Villains come at night, and the bad thing will get erased at night or whatever. I had my own philosophy while writing. This is there. It's a pattern that was developed and long back, and I adapted it to my film. And coming to the shooting part, the entire film was shot on an iPhone, basically. That's
Wow.
it was
Wow.
to everybody's surprise. So, being a cinematographer, I took a daring step to shoot on an iPhone, and it is all our students again. And of course, it is people think shooting on iPhone is easy, but it takes equal effort having a motion picture camera. So, and there's a technique called day for night. Basically, we shoot in the day, and there's a process called digital intermediate. So in the process, we converted that to night. It is not total true night that we shot.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's the technique that we used. And in terms of script, that was intentional. The moment bad things starts happening, there's in screenwriting language we call it midpoint, where Indrasena, the villain, consumes the poison and he faints basically, and both Gautam and Ahalya run away from uh, Dharmapuri, and that's when the story takes a different turn. So that's when the night begins. And again, towards the end, all the bad is gone, and now the sunrise happens and the day begins again. And
Such
now everything happens on a Shivaratri.
yeah, such Shivaratri is supposed to be transformative, and and this actually happens in the film.
Yeah.
So you also mentioned in earlier interviews that you've met Viswanath Garu when you were young and going with your father. So what was it that first struck you in your very early meetings and with him, in terms of how he directed the course of the film in a day-to-day basis? We know, once a film is completed, we can, like how we are doing, we can analyze, go back and see what was done. But seeing it firsthand, how was his temperament on, while shooting? How was he with the crew, with the, cinematographers, with the camera crew? Could you describe some memories?
He's a very quiet man. I wonder how a filmmaker can be that patient, because I don't have such patience when I'm on a set. So, ironically, when I saw him, and I was at the age of say 8 or 9, maybe 10, I don't know. My first meeting with Viswanath Garu is in a bank, where he's sitting there, and my father goes to him and says, నమస్కారం అండి శర్మ గారిని గుర్తుపట్టారా అని. So he says, గుర్తుపెట్టాను బాబు, బాగున్నావా? This is where the conversation began, and my father introduced me. Uh, and the first question he asked me is that, why didn't you go to your school today? You bunked school. So that was the first question. And on set, I think he's a very, very, very patient man. I really wonder how, as I said, a filmmaker can be that patient. And I think that comes over time. That is maturity, 100%. That is maturity, and the patience that he has, and the behavior towards his cinematographer, to all his crew, is equal. He treats all his crew like his family, I'm sure, because I had a first-hand experience in one of this. I don't even remember which set I went. I was too young at that time, but such a pious man. I'm really grateful to be, yeah, on his set.
And I want to just a last note, one of the loveliest uh, aspects of the film was the relationship between Gautam and Ahalya. And the fact that, that they were going to have a child, changes both of them in a very fundamental way, no matter what they have, thoughts about, other issues. But when it comes to their child, they were quite clear that what they wanted for this child, just the fact that the future of the child, what kind of so I'm glad you brought in clearly your want family oriented kind of themes to be projected in films, and you brought it out very beautifully here, that although you also mentioned that he was very different in ideology from her and she wanted to somehow change him. And I think that child, unborn child, in a way also in the end harmoniously is brings them together. So thank you so much.
One important thing, Gandhi.
Mhm.
Viswanath Garu's film, all his films had strong women characters. They are strong women characters lead the film, or change uh, uh, the way we look at films, or the way thought process goes. Take Radhika Garu in Swati Mutyam. I keep iterating the same. So she's such a dynamic characters he had all his films. Just by looking at it, I got so much. I drew so much inspiration from the strong woman characters and designed Ahalya. So my Ahalya, and of course in all my future films, women should be strong, definitely. That inspiration is driven from Viswanath Garu's films only. Ahalya is one of the Viswanath Garu's character, actually.
Wonderful. Because see, in today's films, if you see mainstream films, a strong woman character is stereotyped as somebody who's wearing Western clothes,
Yeah,
following Western manners. She is
yeah.
also kicking and beating up all the thugs. She is trying to be equal to what the male actors do. But
Mm.
here in his films and in your film, we don't have to be, westernized. We can still wear our saris and wear flowers in our hair, wear big bottus, and still be, very, self-actualized and, very in a way, very dominant part of the film. So
Yeah,
that was very beautifully brought, especially, when nativity is important. When you're saying that the local village theme, in a mainstream cinema, you will find, jeans clad actresses even in a village.
yeah, yeah,
So it's not, there is, a mismatch between the backdrop and the actors. Whereas here it's a, perfect role casting, and the way the costume, the design, everything is perfectly done, even the male actors. So wonderful, and all the very best for your next film.
thank
We
you.
hope to see it soon. And
Sure, I'll send a link and this,
yeah,
definitely.
thank you, and lovely speaking to you.
Thank you. Same here, Aparna.
Namaste.
Namaste.